Okay, so we're going to look at another example here. So here's an example where the association is negative and it's also linear. So let's look at our graph. So on the x-axis, you have hours of exercise per week. And on the y-axis, you have the resting heart rate in BPMs. Okay, so we're looking at hours of exercise versus resting heart rate. And so as you see, it looks like as your hours of week increase, your resting heart rate is going to decrease because it goes down as you go from left to right. So I've already given you the equation of the line of best fit. And remember, that's what we're going to use to kind of predict things or make assumptions. The line of best fit is kind of like an average for us to use as we go through and we analyze the data. So I've given you again some questions to think about. So it says, use the line of best fit to predict the resting heart rate at 6 hours of exercise per week. So I'm going to think about the things I'm giving. It says 6 hours of exercise per week. That's X. That's what I'm being given. So I'm given X is 6. So that's what I'm going to look at is when X is 6 here. And it wants me to find the resting heart rate, which is Y. So I'm going to use my graph because it says use a line of best fit. So I'm going to say, okay, at 6, I'm going to look at my line of best fit. At that point, it looks like the resting heart rate is about 55 BPMs. And I think that stands for beats per minute. Okay, so 55 beats per minute at 6 hours of exercise. And so my next example says use your line of best fit to predict how many hours of exercise to have a resting heart rate of 75. So how many hours of exercise? That is my X value. So I don't know that. I'm asked how much. And then I have a resting heart rate of 75. So that's my Y. So I'm being given Y. So now on my Y axis, I'm going to go look for where I see 75. Well, I see 75 right there. So I'm going to just go over to my line of best fit, which is right there. And I'm going to go down. Oh, so I need only 1 hour of exercise for my resting heart rate to be 75 BPMs. Okay, so in those two questions, I can look at my graph, I can look my line of best fit and get my answer. It's pretty simple. However, when you're looking at things and you're trying to predict something off your graph, you need to use the equation of the line of best fit to do that. So if you notice in part C, it says use the equation to predict. That means I have to use the line of best fit equation. So if I scroll up to the top, I gave you that. It's y equals negative 4x plus 79. So I'm just going to write that here. Y equals negative 4x plus 79. And I'm going to do the same process as before. I'm going to look at what I have and what I need to find. So it says use the equation to predict the resting heart rate. So I got to predict the resting heart rate, which is my Y, after 10 hours of exercise. That's X. So I'm being given X. I know X is 10 hours. So I'm going to take that 10 hours and I'm going to plug it in where I see X. So Y equals negative 4. Where X is, I'm going to put 10 plus 79. And then I can use my calculator to solve. I can keep this Y equals. Negative 4 times 10 is negative 40 plus 79. So I'm going to use my calculator. Negative 40 plus 79. And I get 39. So that means Y equals, and I'm just going to bring this over here, 39. 39 is the resting heart rate, so that's 39 BPMs. So remember, Y stands for resting heart rate. So I just predicted there's 10 hours of exercise, which you can't see on my graph, so I'm not sure. I know that the resting heart rate will be about 39 beats per minute. Okay? So that's how you would do it if you don't see it on the graph and you have to use your calculator or you have to use your equation. And so let's look at the other way to do this. So in part D, it says use your equation to predict. So I have to use my equation again, that Y equals negative 4x plus 79. And then I need to find how many hours of exercise, so that's X. So I need to find X is needed per week to have a resting heart rate of 23. So resting heart rate of 23, that's Y. So in my equation, I actually know Y is 23. So I'm going to plug 23 in for Y. So when I do that, it's going to look like this. 23 equals negative 4x plus 79. And I got to solve for x, so I got to get this x by itself to figure out what it is. So I'm going to subtract 79 on both sides. So I'm going to do 23 minus 79, which is negative 56. And then I'm left on this side with negative 4x. Can continue my wall. And then I divide both sides by negative 4. And I get x equals 14, which means it takes 14 hours of exercise per week to have BPMs of 23, heart rate of 23 BPMs. Okay, so that again is how to use your equation to predict. So sometimes you'll be able to use the graph, and other times you'll have to use your equation to be able to predict if the line goes, or if we're looking at numbers that aren't on the graph. So hopefully that's another example that helps you. So make sure to go ahead and try the practice. If you're stuck, email your teacher.